And then you're going to put the index.html in that folder. You can see here's my folder for the game. There's the index.html. And then you need to create two directories. You need a child folder called CSS and a child folder named JavaScript, JS for JavaScript. So there's the CSS and the JavaScript. For the CSS folder, you're going to put the Yahtzee.css I provided you in that folder. So you should have it in that directory. And then with the two JavaScript files, they go in the JavaScript folder. So JavaScript, game.js, and scoring.js. So does the directory structure make sense? Awesome. All right. So once you have that all set up, you're going to grab that game template.js and you need to rename it to game.js. So make sure that it is game.js versus game template.js. So you're going to take the template off of that. And again, the reason for that is if you look at the index.html at the bottom where we have the script to include the external JavaScript, it's expecting it to be called game, not game template. Does that make sense that you need to rename that template? Perfect. All right, so now with the rest of this, the assignment requirements, if you look at the game template.js, they mirror the assignment requirements. Now the reason why I have it in both places is because in the assignment requirements, I can bold. In the template, I cannot. So I do recommend making sure you refer back to the assignment requirements document because I've bolded elements of the assignment so that it makes sense. And so one of the things I do is when I'm creating local variables, I provide you with the name that I used for that variable because I will reference it throughout the assignment requirements document. It's the only way I can make it make sense without being too verbose. So that's why I give you the names of my variables. You do not have to use the same variable names as I do. The only reason why I provide you with variable names, again, is because I reference those variables throughout the assignment requirements document, and it's just easier to understand if you have the name of that variable. That's been my experience. So again, you don't have to name them the same name, but I provided a name so that the rest of the assignment requirements document makes sense. Are you tracking on that? Okay. All right, so here we need to declare a variable that's going to keep track of the roll number. Let me bring the game up. Okay, so when we hit the roll the dice, so right now our variable roll number is going to be a 0. So where are we? So you want to initialize that to a 0 because when you start the game, there is no roll. All right. So the roll number is what's responsible for. Let me click this button. This guy right here. Well, that roll number is going to keep track of the number of rolls. So there's a 1. I'm going to roll the dice again. Then it's 2. Roll the dice again, and then it's 3. And notice that the button disables after you hit the third roll. Okay, so we need to keep track of the roll number because for each turn, the player only gets 3 rolls per round. All right, so then, and let's go back to our template here so we can follow along. So here is where you're going to declare a variable for the roll number and you initialize it to 0. So then the next thing we're going to do, we need a whole bunch of variables here. We're going to keep track of that round number because we need to know what round we're on out of 13 up here. And so we're going to declare a local variable to keep track of the round number, and we initialize that to 1 because we don't start it at 0 with the round. So then in the assignment requirement, in the template, declare a variable, the round number here. All right, so then the next thing we need to do is we are going to declare an array for all of the dice that are currently in play. So I named mine dice anywhere, and you initialize it to an empty array. So we learned with arrays that there's 3 different methodologies on how you can create an array. So lots of times you can just do that will give you an empty array. So that's the literal implementation. If you remember from our array discussion, you can just put a set of empty square brackets and that initializes it to nothing. You can also do the new array as well, but I'm lazy, so I just use my square brackets and I'm happy with that. But different methodologies, but you just need an empty array. Okay? So that's the dice anywhere array. And then we need another array that's going to keep track of the dice on the table, and another array that keeps track of the dice selected. So let me demonstrate that for you. Let's refresh this. All right, so when you initially roll, these are the dice that are on the table. And so the array is holding these dice. That is going to be our dice on table array. Now the dice anywhere is a combination of both of these, the dice on table and the dice selected. And we'll work with that a little bit later in the assignment requirements document. So the dice on table is referencing these guys right here. So I'm going to grab these, and now these are the dice selected. So that's our next array that we're keeping track of here. Is we need an array for the selected dice. I named mine dice selected. Again, initialize it to an empty array. Okay, so we need to keep track of the current die index, and so we need a local variable. We need a global variable for that one. I named mine current die index, and it's going to store the current die index value for either selection or deselection. That is right here. Oh, one more. There we go. Current index. All right, so the next array is going to be our dice index holder array. So we know arrays start at 0. So as we have our dice here, let's re-roll this. So that's index 0, this is index 1, 2, 3, 4. And so because we have 5 dice, we just need to keep track of our dice indexes, or indices, whichever way you would like to pronounce that. I looked it up, they're both valid actually. So I'm like, is it indices or indexes? And with programming, it's both of them are considered acceptable, but it depends upon what industry you're in. Sometimes indices is the proper term. So when you see indexes, it is correct. I did verify that. Anyway, so we just need an array. So when you initialize an array to explicit values, you just do a let's, and we're going to name it die index holder, at least I am. And then you have your square brackets, and then you pass the data in the square brackets, or you could do, oops. And then do the same thing. Both of them will accomplish the same thing. Okay. All right, so that is our die index holder array. So then the next thing we need after that is we have a variable, and it's going to be called, I called it selected dice elements, and it'll refer to the selected elements. Those selected elements are these guys. So that's a selected element, And that one is right here. So then we need to go grab some of the DOM elements from our HTML. And so in order to update the DOM from JavaScript, we need to have a reference to it here in our JavaScript. And so we have a whole bunch of constants that are going to allow us to refer to those different elements in the HTML file. All right, so the first one is going to be, we need to declare a constant, and I'm going to name it, I named it dice area. And then we set it equal to document.getElement by ID. And then we're going to pass to it the explicit argument dice area. So we were talking about how we accomplish that in HTML. So let me demonstrate one of them for you, and a lot of them are very similar. And so this one wants the dice area. So if you go to the index.html, and there is a div ID called dice area. So the dice area is this guy right here. So we need a reference to this guy so that we can manipulate it from the JavaScript. So you're going to pass that as an argument. that make sense? Yes? Okay, cool. All right, so there's a bunch of those. So we need to also have a reference to the selected dice area, which is this area right here. And in the HTML, we go and look, and there is the div for that one with the ID of selected dice area. So you want to get a reference to that element by declaring a constant. Again, I named it selected dice area. We set it equal to document dot, get element by ID, and then pass that string selected dice area for the ID. So then we need a constant that's going to refer to our roll button, this guy right here. Oh, come back. And so I named it roll button, and document dot get element ID, and this time it's going to be the roll button. If we go look at the HTML. Did I typo that? That says roll dice button. What did I put in here? That is just roll button. Well then, bear with me one moment. That should be roll dice button. I apologize. Yes. Yep, I typoed that one. My bad. I thought I could fix them all. Do this. Bless you. I'll update the assignment requirements document after we get done going through it. I'm just highlighting the ones that I changed, so when I send the email to let you know that I had a typo in there and I fixed it, that you know exactly which one I was talking about. There we go. I did name mine roll button though. Roll button is roll dice button. Okay. Roll button is roll dice. Got it. Nice. All right. So then we need one that's going to allow us to reference this element right here for our round number. And so I named it round number element. Document dot get element by ID, passing in as argument round number. So round number is right here. All right, so then we need a reference to our, what's the site wrapper. So if we go look at the HTML, here's the site wrapper. So it's the overall wrapper for our elements for the game. So we need to create a constant for that one as well. I named mine site wrapper, document dot get element ID, and the argument is site dash wrapper. We need a reference to our site canvas, this guy right here. And so we're going to do our constant. I named it site wrapper. Document dot get element ID, pass the explicit text site wrapper. And then we need one more for our site canvas. So that's going to be this one right here. And we're going to declare a constant site canvas, set it equal to document dot get element ID, and pass site canvas as an argument. And then the last one we need a reference to is our speculative score tab. This is the speculative score tab here on the right hand side. If I refresh this, notice it is not visible. Only when we're rolling is it visible. So I would grab these guys. And so notice it updates as the dice go into the selected area. So then I want to re-roll this die, try to get a 1 or a 6. Nope. Re-roll this die, get a 1 or a 6. Nope. So all I got was a small straight. So that's the speculative score tab. So we need a constant to refer to it. So I named it speculative score tab, document dot get element ID, and passing speculative dash score as an argument. And if we go look at the index.html, you can see all of our speculative, oh, come back here. Where are you guys? We can see our speculative score classes there. Bear with me 1 second. Let me check this really quick, bear with me. Yep, I put the wrong function in there, I apologize. That one is a class. That is not. Copy, paste, modify. Gets you every time. That should be this. Get elements by class name is the correct one. There we go, get elements by class name. Let me highlight that. You would think I would catch the stuff the first time I reviewed it. Guess it takes 3 times. Okay. All right, so we're gonna get the elements by class name, passing the argument speculative score. And so if we look at our indexed HTML, we can see that we have multiple classes with that multiple elements with that class of speculative dash score. Ooh, I should have picked a better word. All right, that makes sense? Yes? All right. Okay, and then 2 more things before we get into the functions. We need to add an event listener to our button roll button. And so what we would do, so we have our roll button, and you do add event, there you go, add event listener. And then we're gonna pass 3 arguments to that event listener. We need the explicit text click, because that's the action that the user is taking that we wanna respond to. We're gonna pass the name of the function that will get called as a result of it being clicked. So we pass just the function name. Don't pass the parameter list at all or arguments, just pass the function name. And then the last thing is the Boolean false. So there's a couple of places throughout the document where you either have to add an event listener or remove an event listener. And so we want to use those methods, either add event listener or remove event listener. Good? Okay, cool. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do before we get to our functions is we are going to call the function check roll number. And that's going to make sure that we're on the correct roll here. Okay, so that's all of the variables and constants that we're declaring before we get to the functions. Is there any questions about the variables or the constants? All right. So then the next thing we're going to do is, so in the template, for each one of the functions, I have included the open closed curly braces. The reason why I do that is because if I didn't include them, I feel like it can kind of get lost. Like if I didn't have these open closed curly braces, and then, you know, it could potentially get lost, and then like these statements might end up in the wrong function. So that's why I include the open closed curly braces with the comments in them, so you know where the function is supposed to end, so we don't accidentally put functionality from one function into another and then get undesired results. So the open closed curly braces just for the function are there. So if there's any nested constructs like looping or decision making, I did not include the open closed curly braces for that, because especially for some of them with the looping construct and the decision making construct, there's multiple ways to achieve the same thing, and I don't want to force you into a specific implementation if there's more than one way to do it. So I did not include the open closed curly braces, but I do have them for the functions. So that should help you kind of like focus on what belongs in each function. All right, the first function we need to write is to randomly select a number from 1 to 6. So we were just talking about how we do randomization in JavaScript last week. And so it was pretty straightforward with the code examples. I think that is in, which one did I put that in? Formula engine. I'm sorry?
Is it in the math?
Which one?
Math?
What number?
23.
Oh, yeah, you're right, thank you. Yes, you're correct, it's in the math one, I apologize. Yeah, so if you go look at the math one, it shows you, and in fact, I think I have a working example because I was doing a similar game when I created this lecture. There we go. So here's your math.random. So this is the guy that you want right here. So they'll randomize. It'll give you 0 to 5. So if you want 1 to 6, then this is the one because you got to add the scaling factor. I mean the shifting factor. So we call the value that we're multiplying the math.random by is the scaling factor. So the scaling factor is the range or the scale of data that we want. And then because it starts at 0, but we're trying to simulate a die that starts at 1, then we have to apply the shifting factor to add that 1 to it. So this is the one that's going to get you to where you need to be to randomize that die. You don't want to. You come back. There we go. Okay, so that's all that the randomized die is going to do. It's just going to randomly, it's going to return a value between 1 and 6. Good with that one? Okay. All right, so then our check roll number. So for this function, it has an empty parameter list, and the purpose of it is to update the dice roll button status based on the current roll number. And so you can write decision-making logic. You can do it with a switch or with an if-else-if. It doesn't matter which way you achieve that. But you're going to evaluate that variable roll number. And so for each one of the potential values, this is what we want to do. And so if the value is a 0, we're going to update variable roll button, and we're going to set that class name equal to an empty character. So when you do that, let me demonstrate. There we go. And then an empty character. Okay? And then we need to update our variable roll number to add 1 to it. Hey, what are you doing that for? Semicolon, there we go. Okay, so the reason why we're clearing out the class name at roll 0 is because we haven't done anything yet, so we don't want a specific class to be applied. Now, when we do move on to roll 1, 2, or 3, what we want to happen, and watch this guy up here, there's a little indicator at the top. When I hit the first roll, notice that that position now is filled. I hit the second roll, now that one is filled. I hit the third roll, and that one is filled. And then it also grays it out so that it disables it, okay? So that's what we're trying to achieve. So let's go back to the assignment requirements. So we saw for roll 0, there will be no class. But if it's roll 1, we actually need to update that class name and set it equal to roll 1 so that we can get that first bit right there filled in. And then we need to add 1 to our roll number again. Now roll 2, for that one that has a different class, the roll 2 class, and with the roll 2 class is what makes it look like this. And you still need to add 1 to it. And then when we get to our last roll, we're going to update our roll button and set that class to a roll 3 so that it's completely filled out and the button is grayed out. So we need to remove the event listener on that roll number now because we've gone through all 3 rolls for that one turn. We don't want the users to be able to roll again. And so we're going to remove the event listener. We're going to pass that explicit text click. We're going to pass that function roll die, and we're going to pass that explicit Boolean false. And then we need to update the roll number to add 1 to it. And then the last thing we're going to do, and we learned this with the animation, is we're going to use that function set timeout, and we're going to pass to it two arguments. The first one is an anonymous function. That anonymous function is will update that role button and set that class name equal to disabled. So that's how this is happening here. Ooh, come back. And then the second argument is just going to take 500 milliseconds to do that. So let me demonstrate that dude for you. Take this out of there. So we learned about anonymous functions in the functions discussion. So we're going to do our set timeout. And we need to pass two arguments to it. The second argument is just a straight up 500 milliseconds. But the first argument is that anonymous function. So when you create an anonymous function, you use the keyword function with no words, with no name in it, just the open closed parentheses, open closed curly braces. And then what it does is we want to update that variable role button. We're going to set that class name again. Oops, I'm going to spell that correctly. There we go. Class. Thank you. We're going to set that class name equal to, and it says role and disabled. So there's two classes. Set that equal to role 3. And then when you pass multiple classes for an element, you just space delimit those additional classes. So we have a class, space, and a class. So it looks something like that. And then in the event that we have some value stored in our roll number other than 0, 1, 2, 3, then we need to handle that, so we can have an else or a default. So the else is if you do an if-else if, the default is if you decide to do a switch. But regardless, you're going to do a console.log, and you're going to log to the console that that roll number is invalid. So let's go over here to the template, and you can see that that same information is provided here. You're going to write that function, check roll number, empty parameter list, and then here you're going to have decision making, however you're going to set that up. And I just included the logic there. That's the same in the assignment requirements document. So is there any questions about the check roll number function? Awesome. All right, next one is our roll die function. So with our roll die function, the parameter list will be empty and it's going to roll the dice. And so the first thing we need to do is call our function check roll number to update the roll number indicator on the roll button. So right now, there we go. All right, so we updated that. Come back. And then we're going to check to see if that round number variable is identical to a 1. And if it is identical to a 1, then we're going to update the round number indicator, the visibility, to be visible. So to do that, we want to set document.getElementById, passing as an argument the round number wrapper. If we go to our HTML, where's my round number wrapper? Down here. There we go. So there's that ID round number wrapper. So then we're going to append to that the class name, and we're going to set that equal to visible because we want the round number to be visible. So I'm going to click this guy, and now that round number is visible. So after we do that, we need to clear the dice table. So to clear, because we have a new role, so the dice table needs to be cleared. So we're going to do a document.getElementById, and we're going to pass as an argument the variable dice area, and then dot inner HTML, and you set that equal to an empty string. So again, because we're on roll 1, that means that we're this is the first roll. So then we need to update our array dice on table, and we're going to set that equal to an empty array because for each roll we want to clear it out. So then we're going to declare a variable amount to roll. So this is where it's going to determine how many dice are left. So right now, when I roll, I've got 5. So it would give me the value of 5 to roll those dice, but I'm going to keep the 6s. So now there's only 3 dice left, and so that's what that variable is keeping track of, the amount to roll, is how many dice are left up here in the dice tray that we want to re-roll. So I kept my 2 6s, I'm going to roll that dice again, I'm going to keep those 2 6s. And so what it does, because there should be 5 dice total, that's the potential, we're going to find out how many are still there and only roll that one that's still there. No Yahtzee, bummer. So that's what the amount to roll is doing for us, and so we're going to set that amount to roll equal to 5 total dice minus the length of our dice selected. So let me try this again. So I'm going to let me just keep the 6. So the dice selected has 1 element in it, and there's still 4 left, right? So 5 minus 1 gives me the 4. Now I'm going to go for a small straight. So now my dice selected is 4, so there's only 1 left in the tray. And so that's what this is calculating. How many dice are left in the tray that get re-rolled? So we're going to find out how many are left to re-roll. We're going to store that in our amount to roll. And then we're going to write a looping construct to iterate through that number of dice to re-roll, that amount to roll that we just calculated. And then we're going to declare a variable, dice roll. We're going to set it equal to function call randomize die. So we're going to get 1 die at a time. And then we're going to update our array, dice on table. And we're going to use the function from the array object push so that we can push the dice that we just rolled onto that dice on table array so that we can see the dice that were rolled here. So we can do that again, and then do that again. Oh, I got a large straight. Yay. Okay, so after we re-roll those dice, then we need to call the function draw dice on table so they actually display. And then we also need to call the function update dice anywhere. And what that's going to do is reset the dice that are in play. And we are also going to call function update score table. And that's going to update the score table to show the correct values on the score. So we can see the values over here. Right now I don't have anything, but let's put some scores in there. Grab you guys. Almost. All right, so I'm going to click this guy, and there's the score on the table there. So if you haven't played Yahtzee before, you can get a 35-point bonus if the total of the 1s, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6s is equal to or is greater than or equal to 63, then you get a 35-point bonus. So what this section right here in this table is doing, this row in this table is doing, is it's telling you how many points are left to get to the bonus. So let me, oh, there's a large straight. Right on. Let's do the ones. No. Oh, ooh. 6s. There's my 5s. So you can see that this is updating, saying how many points are left for us to get the bonus. Oh, that's terrible. I'm not going to get the bonus this time. I already have 2s and 4s. We'll just roll them all. Oh, I don't have the 4s. There we go. There's a 4. No 4s. One more time. Try to get some 1s here. There we go. Okay. So notice I didn't get the bonus because my score was not 63 or greater. In order to get 63, you have to get 3 of each category. If you get 3 1s, 2s, 3s, that actually totals up to 63. I'm just trying to get this to show that bonus. There we go. Just look at the downside of randomization. Yay, Yahtzee. I'm gonna take that Yahtzee. Doesn't happen often, but I'm gonna take it. I don't know. Trying to get there. I need twos. Come on, twos. I just need 10, so I need 3 4s. I need 3 4s, dice, let's go. Oh, you're funny. Give me a 4. Oh, come on now. All right, so for the chance to work, you have to select all 5 dice, because that's what chance does. It just adds together all the 5 dice. I'm trying to get these 4s here so I can show you the upper bonus working. Oh, really? Come on now, dice. Let's do that. Come on, 4s. 1 more. Rude. Come on, 4s. Let's go. Of course this is happening because I'm trying to make it work. Come on now. Dr. Lineker calls this the demo gods. They always work against you when you're trying to demonstrate stuff. What is with the 4s today? I could get 4s all day long if I wasn't trying to. Come on, 2 more 4s. Haha, got them. All right, so I got my 4s. There we go. So there, you can see we got the bonus. That's a terrible score, by the way. All these zeros kind of host me. All right, so you can see that bonus there working. All right, let's go back to our assignment requirements document. So I was demonstrating that amount to rule functionality and how, depending upon how many dice are selected versus not selected, that's how we know which dice to re-roll. And then updating that score table. Okay, any questions about the roll die function? All right, so now we need to draw the dice on the table. So we have this function for that, draw dice on table. Go over to our assignment requirements, our template here. All right, so with the template, again, we just walk through the same steps here. Again, the purpose of the roll die is to roll dice. And based on which dice the user has selected to keep or not to keep is which ones get rolled. All right, so draw dice on table. We need the dice to actually show up. So we have this function, draw dice on table. This one has an empty parameter list. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to update that array die index holder, and we're going to initialize it. We're going to spell that correctly too. I thought I fixed all my initialized incorrect ones. I don't want to do that. It's all right. That's just a typo. All right, so we're going to set it back to that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 again for the dice. And then we need to write a looping construct, and it's going to iterate through the array dice on table. And as we're looping through that array, first we're going to call the function draw die on table, and we're going to pass as an argument the following. We're going to pass the current index of our array dice on table, so that element, and then we're also going to pass that same index for the die index holder. And so we're going to grab whatever die shows up first and plus the appropriate index. So this is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to grab that die itself. And then we grab that die itself. So it goes and grabs those dice. And for each one of the dice, it does the function called draw die on table. Again, passing that die on table and passing that the index of the die on table array and the index of the die index holder. So once you draw all of the dice on the table, we need to call the function update selected dice elements. And then after we call that function, we need an if. So we need to find out if any of the dice were selected. So you can just ask if one of the things we learned about arrays, and we also learned about Boolean. So with arrays, we just want to know if there's something in the array or not. And so you can just do an if statement on the array name. So if there's elements stored in that array, this will come back as true, because that's how arrays work in JavaScript. If there's any element in that array, it doesn't matter where it exists, As long as there's at least one element in that array, it does come back true. So that's when you're asking if that array is true. This is how we ask if the array is true. So if there are elements in that selected dice elements array, then what we want to do is we're going to iterate through that, the length of the selected dice elements. And for each one of the dice in that array, we're going to update our array selected dice elements using that current index, and we're going to use the function set attribute. And so we're going to call that function set attribute, and we're going to pass as arguments to it the explicit text die index, and then we're going to also pass our array dice on table and that property length, and we're going to add to it our loop control variable. So let's go look at this really quick. All right, so we have a loop control variable, so we could do a for. I'm using D to represent a die. We're going to iterate through the length of our array. Oops, that's a plus plus, there we go. No semicolon here. There we go. All right, so we're going to update the current index in that array. So we're going to grab that array name, current index, and then we're going to call that function set attribute. There we go. And then we pass to it explicit text die index because we need to know what die number is. And our array dice on table dot length. And you add your loop control variable to it. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. All right, let's undo that. Perfect. Okay, so that is our function draw dice on table. And you can see here in the template, we followed through all of those same steps. Are there any questions about the dice on table function? Okay. The next function we need to write is select die from table. Select die from table has an empty parameter list. And its purpose is to remove a die from the selected tray. So here I have the 6s in there. Well, if I take them out and I'm like, no, I want to do the 1s instead, we need to keep track of where those dice are at. And then I can roll, get my 1, roll, that's it. So I just have my 3 1s. So in order to support that, we're going to remove the die from the selected dice tray when we no longer want it to be part of our turn. We're going to declare a variable dice value, and we set it equal to the function called parseInt. And we're going to pass as arguments 2 values. First, we're going to pass keyword this dot, the function get attribute dot, and then pass die value as an argument. And then we're going to pass the second argument as just a hard-coded 10 to represent radix 10 because we're using a decimal numbering system. We need to do the same thing to get the current die index as well. And so we know that we are storing that current die index by using this attribute die dash index. So we need to go grab that. Come back here. So we're going to update our current die index variable, and we're going to set it equal to the function parseInt, and we're going to pass 2 arguments. The first argument is going to be this dot get attribute. We're going to pass as an argument to the get attribute, the die index, and then also the second argument will be the radix 10 again because we're using a decimal numbering system. So then we need to declare a variable called position. And we're gonna set it equal, and what this does is it grabs the position of the current die that we're working with. And so we're gonna set that equal to the array dice on table, and there's a function that we learned about, index of. So we're gonna do dice on table dot index of. I'm gonna pass as an argument that dice value variable that we just declared up above. Then we need to update our array dice selected, and we're gonna use the function splice, and we're gonna pass to that 2 arguments. We're gonna pass that position that we just found, and then we're going to pass the second argument is a 1. And so the splice function will allow us to grab a specific element out of an array. And so when we do that, we have to say where it starts and then how many elements we want from the array. So we only want the 1 because we're just doing this 1 die at a time. So then we need to update our array dice on table, and we're going to use the function push, and we're going to pass to that the argument dice value, the variable dice value. So then we're going to call our function draw die on table, and we need to pass 2 arguments to that function. So we just calculated the dice value for the die that was selected, and we also calculated the current die index based on the die that was selected. So we're going to pass those 2 variables to our draw die on table function. So now we want to remove the die from the DOM because we selected it, and so we don't want the die to be available in both trays, either the rolling tray or the selected tray. We want to make sure it only exists in one of those trays, and so we need to make sure that we remove it from the other area, either the selected area or the dice area. So we're going to remove the selected die, and we're going to use the keyword this, and we're going to use the object parent node, so this dot parent node, and then dot, and there's a function, remove child. And we're going to pass to it just the keyword this because it's just based on whatever die we just clicked on. So let's do this, roll the dice. So I click on this one, and click on this one. So the keyword this is referencing whichever die we were just clicked on. Then we need to call our function update dice anywhere, and also call the function update score table. So we come over here, and there's the function, select die from table, empty parameter list. First we have to get the die value, so we use that parse int function, passing our 2 arguments, this dot get attribute dot die value, and then the radix 10, and then we need to get its index. We're going to use the parse int again. We're going to do this dot get attribute dot die index, and then also the radix 10. Come down here, declare that variable position, setting it equal to the array dice on table, function index of, and then passing that dice value as an argument. And then we're going to update the array dice on table using the function slice. There's the 2 parameters you need to pass to it, position and 1. We need to remove that selected die from the DOM. We're going to do that by referencing the keyword this dot parent node dot remove child, and then pass the keyword this as an argument to the remove child function. We update our array dice selected, so we're going to have dice selected dot push, and we're going to pass that dice value. And then here we call that function draw selected dice, pass the 2 arguments, dice value and current die index. Then we call that function update anywhere and update score table. Are there questions about the select die from table function? All right, so now we need to draw the selected dice on the table. All right, so we're going to write this function, draw selected dice. It's going to draw the selected dice into that dice tray. So it's these guys down here. So I grab this guy and grab this guy. So we need them to appear down here. So this one does have parameters. It has 2 parameters. You're going to have value and index. And so as a reminder that when you have a function that has parameters in it, you get a keyword function, your parameter list, and because JavaScript is a loosely typed programming language, all we have to do is put the variable names in there and that's it. Well, the parameter names. You don't have to do a var or a let, just put the parameter names in the parentheses. Okay, so in that function, what we want to do, we need to declare a variable. I named it div, and we're going to set it equal to document.create element, and then pass as explicit text div. So what this is doing is creating a div. So let me demonstrate that one, since we haven't really gone over that one too much in class. Do our create element, and then you're going to create a div. That's how you can create a div from JavaScript, okay? And we do this multiple times in a couple of functions here. All right, so once you've created that div, then what we're going to do is keep adding to it. So here, we're going to add to that div. We're going to do the app class name, and you're going to do a plus equals selected. So let me redo that. Like that, okay? So what this is doing, if there's already another class assigned to that div, this is just adding this next class to it. So we don't want to overwrite the other classes that are already assigned to that div. We just want to add this additional class to it. So that's why we're doing the plus equals instead of just the equals. All right, so once we have that class added to our div, we're going to append it to our variable selected dice area. So you're going to do selected dice area dot append child, and then you're going to pass to that function the div we just created. So by doing the append, that is every time I click here, let's re-roll. So this is our selected dice area. And I roll the dice, and I click here, and it added there. Well, I want to add the 4, so that's appending it. I want to add the 3, that's appending it. I want to add the 4, that's appending it. So we want to make sure, no full house. So that's what the appending is doing for us. All right, so on that variable div, we're going to call the function set attribute, and we're going to pass as an argument. As arguments, we're going to pass the die-value, and then we're going to pass the parameter value that we received. We also need to set another attribute on our die. So for the div, we're going to call that set attribute function again, and this time we're going to pass die-index. And so the parameter that we received was called index. And so this is just adding the information about that die for each one of them. And so the information we need to know, like this is a 5. And what index is it? It's index 1. So this is a 2. So the value is a 2, the index is 0. Here the value is 2, but the index is 4. So for each one of these die, in order to keep track of them, we need to have those 2 attributes on them. So then once you have the attributes added to it, we need to add that event listener that we looked at the very beginning of the assignment. So I said we're going to do that add event listener multiple times. So here for that variable div, we're going to do that add event listener function, and we're going to pass 3 arguments to that function: the explicit text click, the function remove die selection, and then a Boolean false. So then we come over here, draw selected dice. Here's our draw selected dice. So we create the div. We add the class name. We add to the class name die selected. We append the selected area for this die we just created. And then for that die we just created, we're going to set 2 of the attributes. We're going to set the attribute die-value and give it the value. We're going to set the attribute die-index and give it the index. And then finally, we add that event listener for when the user clicks on the button, it will respond. Any questions about that function? Okay, so the next function is a remove die selection. So you'll notice that some of these functions are really, really similar. So you really could do like a copy, paste, modify. Just make sure you do the modify part. I was working with a student during office hours today, and they did the copy paste part, but they missed the modify, and they're like, "What? What's going on?" And it's like, copy paste modify. You got to do the modify part. But anyway, so make sure if you do copy paste modify, just make sure you actually do the modify parts. But so here with the remove die selection, you're gonna see that this one is super similar to the select die from table function. They're very similar. All right, so for this one, let's go back here. Oh, they're not in the same order. Remove die selection. We just did the remove die selection. Did we do that? Yes, okay. I feel like I'm losing my mind. The function names are so similar and the functionality is very similar. I'm just like, I get lost in it. It's like, oh my gosh, there's just too much. Okay, draw selected dice. So we need to draw this selected dice. So we need to make these guys down here appear. All right, so this one also has, did I just do this? Oh my God, thank you. I'm sorry. This is the one we wanted. Select die from table. That's where I got confused because I was scrolling back up and like, it's just like this function. Okay, so it is just like the function up above, except the main thing that changes is the array name and either your, and the removing. Yes, so basically it's just the array name is where it changes, but the rest of it's really similar. All right, so here the select die from table. So this one is an empty parameter list, and then we're gonna declare a variable, dice value. So just like the previous function, we're gonna set that equal to, we need to do the parse int, the function call, and then we pass to that parse int the keyword this dot get attribute, and then in the parentheses, you're gonna pass as an argument die dash value, and then the second argument to the parse int function is the 10. Again, indicating that we are decimal based. Scroll back. And then we also need to get the die's index, and so we're going to use that parse int function again, and then we're going to do this dot get attribute, and this time we're passing the die dash index as the argument. So we'll get the index of that die, and again the radix 10 because we are using decimal values. So we're going to declare a variable called position. We're going to set it equal to dice on table dot index of, and you're going to pass as an argument this variable dice value that we just created up above. We're going to update our array dice on table. We're going to use that function splice. We're going to pass the first argument is the position where we just found our current die, and then the hard-coded 1 because we just want that one element. So we want to remove that selected die from the DOM. So we're going to reference the keyword this, and then we're going to do dot, and then parent node, and then dot, and then remove child. So up above, we did, yeah, we have a similar one there, because we're moving this out of the selected tray. So we have to remove child, and then we pass as an argument the keyword this, so that whichever die we're clicking on, it doesn't matter. So this is referring to this die. So then we need to update our array, dice selected, and we're going to use that function push, and we're going to pass that dice value variable that we just created up above as an argument. And now we need to draw that die. So we're going to draw the selected die. So we're going to call that function draw selected die. We're going to pass as arguments the dice value and the current die index that we determined up above. And then we need to call function update dice anywhere and update scores table. So scroll down. All right, so there's our remove die selection. We're going to remove it from the selected die tray, empty parameter list. Go grab the value that's on the die. Go grab the index of the die. And then you're going to have that variable position so you can find out where that die is so that we can do the splice function on it and remove it from the dice selected function. And then we need to push it to our dice on table function. Again, the dice on table is referring to this guy up here. So if I do this, it's adding it back. If I do this, it's adding it back. No, come back, come back. Then we call that function draw die on table because we need the die to actually appear once we move it. We pass the arguments dice value and current die index. Then we remove that selected die from the DOM, this dot, parent node dot, remove child, and then keyword this. Call the function update dice anywhere, call the function update score table. Any questions about that function? Okay, so now we need to actually draw the die on the table. All right, so for this one, it has two parameters. We're gonna have that value and that index, so it's just similar to the function up above that is doing the same thing. We're gonna declare a variable die div. We're gonna set it equal document dot, create element, pass div as an argument. We're gonna add to the die div class name, so die div dot class name. Again, do the plus equals because we don't want to overwrite any of the existing classes that are on there. We want to add to it. So I want to add the class die. So then we want to append to our variable dice area. We're going to use that function append child. So dice area dot append child passes an argument, the die div. And then for our variable die div, we're going to use that function set attribute, and we're going to pass two arguments to it. We're going to pass the die dash value and then the parameter value. Then we do that again for the index. For our die div, dot set attribute, pass die dash index and the parameter index. And then for our variable die div, we need to add that event listener. So we're going to pass the arguments, the click, explicit text click, the function that it's going to call, which is select die from table, and then a Boolean false. I was just making sure I had that remove in there. I was like, I don't remember seeing that remove. All right, so that's draw die on table. Come over here. Our two parameters, value and index. Create the die div by using the create element and then pass div as an argument. Add the class, so die div dot class name plus equals that die class. Append it to the dice area. So we're going to do dice area dot append a child and pass that argument die div. And then here for die div, we have our two set attribute function calls, one for the die value, one for the die index. And then here we're going to add that event listener. We're listening for a click. If it gets clicked on, we're going to call function select die from table and pass a Boolean false. Any questions about that function? Okay, we just have a few more. And this is why I didn't have you do the scoring as well, because holy smokes, we'd be here for like 3 days talking about this assignment. All right. So then hide the speculative scores. I should have done a better word with that one. All right. So that's these guys here. So initially you don't see those guys showing. As soon as I roll the dice though, they do display. And then I'm going to pick my dice. And notice that it's updating as I pick the dice. Ooh. So in order to score, though, the dice have to be in the selected area. So notice it's not giving me anything for, I have a 1, it's not giving me a 1. I have 2 2s, it's not giving me those. So if you put them all in there, notice that the speculative scores are updating. You see that? So I could either take that as my chance, I could hose myself and just do 12 on my 6s, maybe hope I could make up a missing 2, but you have to pick a category. Now, you don't have to pick a category that actually has a score associated with it. You're like, nah, I don't want to hose myself. I'm gonna zero my Yahtzee. So you can always zero one of them. Now, one of the things that happens is when you have claimed a category, that speculative score is no longer visible because you can't rescore that category. So here, oh yay, ones. I grab those ones, the one, and I have 4 ones. So again, anything that's a possible match is highlighted here. But you don't have to pick them, but you can. So I would pick this one. So that's what the speculative score is about. So notice that this one isn't showing, this one isn't showing now. All right, so for that function, hide speculative scores. It's an empty parameter list. We're just going to loop through the length of that speculative score tab array. And in that array, at the current index, we're going to set that attribute style dot display, and we set it equal to a none. So let me show you that. So here we have our speculative array. So whatever your loop control variable is, so let's just say it's an I, and then you would do a dot style dot display set equal to none, like that. Okay. All right, any questions about the hide speculative scores? Okay, so then we have update round number. So obviously we just need to increase our round number. So we have an empty parameter list. We're gonna update the variable round number element, and we're gonna do dot inner HTML. And we're gonna set that equal to math.min, and we're gonna pass our arguments, the argument round number, our variable, and then the explicit 13, because we have 13 rounds. So we come over here, there's our update round number, empty parameter list, variable round number element dot inner HTML, math.min function, pass arguments round number and 13. Any questions about that function? Okay, so now we have a reset table. So when we're playing a game, let me just reload this. When we're playing a game, there we go, there's some 5s. Hell yeah. Do this, roll, there's a small straight, roll, 2, 2, nope. Small straight, 1, 1. All right, so I want a new game, so I'm just gonna, you could refresh the web browser, and we'll get that, but what ends up happening is the resets table actually happens as a result of the game being over. It's a terrible game. Oh, there's a full house. Hell yeah. That is small straight. Be a large, be a large. Hell yeah. So notice that's a large straight, but again, the dice have to be down here for the speculative scores to update. Threes, this one. So let me get through this real quick. Oh, I already did ones. I don't want that. 3, 4, 5. Small straight, small straight. No small straight, really? All right, again, to do the chance, you have to pick them all. 6s. There we go. That is a large straight. I only need a small straight. I already have 3s. We can try for a Yahtzee. No Yahtzee. All right, so we'll do 3 of a kind. 5's good. There we go. Just bear with me 1 second. I just want to get to where that function is getting called. Oh, that's terrible. I need an extra 4 to make that happen. You want to be a Yahtzee? Be a Yahtzee. Be a Yahtzee! Damn it. It is 4 of a kind. So I need 4 of a kind and 4s. I need a Yahtzee enforced. So choose. Be a Yahtzee. Nope, no Yahtzee for me. And then force. There we go. Okay. So after the game is over is when this function reset table is getting called. And so when we click this button, new game is going to zero all of this out. It's going to reset our round number to 1 out of 13, and it'll also give us the roll the dice button. So that's the whole purpose of that function. So in order to reset that table for a new game, we need to do the following. So we're going to update our array, dice on table, to set it to an empty array. We're going to do the same thing the dice selected. We're going to set it to an empty array. We're going to reinitialize our dice index holder, and we're going to spell that word correctly. There we go. And we're going to pass it the explicit data 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to call that function update dice anywhere. We need to update the variable roll number and set it back to a 0. We need to call the function check roll number. We need to call the function hide speculative scores. We need to call the function update round number. Then we're going to add that event listener back to our roll button. So we're going to pass the 3 arguments, the explicit text click, the function name roll die, and then the Boolean false. We need to update our variable selected dice area dot inner HTML, set it to an empty string because we want this to be completely cleared out again. We're going to set that to an empty string, and we also need to do that for the dice area dot inner HTML. You're going to set that to an explicit string as well. So now both of these are cleared out. So let's go look at the template. Here's our function, reset table, empty parameter list. There's the dice on table, set it to an empty array, dice selected, empty array, die index holder, set it back to our 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, call the function update dice anywhere. We're going to update that roll number variable, initialize it back to a 0. We're going to call the function check roll number, call the function hide speculative scores, call that function update round number, and then the last thing is to the roll button, add the explicit text click, then the function roll, and then the Boolean false. Update a variable selected dice area dot inner HTML, set it to an empty string, dice area dot inner HTML, set it to an empty string. Any questions about the reset table function? All right, just got a couple more here, a few more here. Bear with me. Thank goodness. All right, so we reset the game. And to reset the game, we're going to reference the object window.location, and we're going to set it equal to, we're going to do window.location, and then dot reload, and you're going to pass to the reload function the argument false. So it's just literally one line of code here to reset the game. Any questions about the reset game? Okay. Update selected dice elements. So with the update selected dice elements, it has an empty parameter list. We're going to have an if statement. If the selected dice area dot inner HTML is not identical to an empty string, that is a not. I caught that one last night when I was writing the assignment. I'm like, no, because initially I had it is equal to an empty string. I'm like, no, that's wrong, Karen. So I did catch that one. It should not be identical to an empty string. And we're going to set our variable selected dice elements, and we're going to set it equal to document dot get elements by class name, and then we pass as an argument die selected. And over here, there's our update selected dice elements, empty parameter list. We're going to check if that selected dice area dot inner HTML is not identical. Again, identical is 3 equal signs. Not identical is a bang and 2 equal signs. Set that variable selected dice elements equal to document dot get elements by class name, passing argument die dash selected. All right, last function. Update update dice anywhere. So I've been calling this function a few times now, so we need to actually write it. So it has an empty parameter list. We're going to check to see if the variable dice selected is true. So again, dice selected is an array. And so we just pass the array name in the if statement. If there's elements in the array, it will evaluate as true. If there's no elements in the array, it evaluates as false. So if there are elements in the array, then we want to set our array dice anywhere equal to dice on table, and then we're going to concatenate it with the dice selected. And so that, how you do that, if you go back to our arrays, the concatenation, there's the cats, there's the horses, there we go, there's the concat. So you reference one array, use the concat function, and pass the second array. So that's how you can concatenate arrays in JavaScript. And then if dice selected is not true, then we're going to set our array dice anywhere equal to the dice on table array. So come over here, there's the if, dice selected is true, set dice anywhere equal to dice on table concatenated with dice selected. So again, dice anywhere is all of the dice on the table. Otherwise, the dice anywhere is equal to our dice on table. So when we have selected, come back here, there we go. When we have, so there's no selected dice down here. So as a result, it's just going to go grab the dice on table, because the dice on table is storing these dice right here. But as soon as I put them here, now they're in the array dice selected. And so to get the update dice anywhere, it's both of them combined, the dice on table and the dice selected. Does that make sense? All right. Whew, that's a lot, huh? All right, so for the test cases, when the page loads, now, again, one of the things I did put up here, you are more than welcome to change the color scheme, the color palette. You do not have to go with my UCFE color palette. You don't have to use my fonts either. You can change your fonts as well. So you are more than welcome to go and modify the CSS if you don't like the way that my CSS looks. In previous assignments, I've made it an actual requirement. But for this assignment, I'm fine with, if you just want to use my CSS, that's cool. But if you do want to customize it and make it more your own, then by all means, please feel free to update the CSS. Let me find that one. Okay, so here, if you are interested in modifying the CSS, you'll find where I'm using the background color is black, so that roll dice button. And then this is this thing right here, the little indicator what roll number we're on. The hover, the score sheet, so that's over here. More score sheeting, more score sheeting. Dice area, so that's the background color of the dice area. The selected dice area, background color. And then the other ones, if you look for gold, so I just did black and gold for the color scheme. So if you go and look anywhere where you see black and gold, right there, so the body is gold, so that's the whole background there. So you are more than welcome to modify the CSS if you want. So again, look for the colors anywhere you see a background color of black or gold, and those are where the colors are at. But it's not a requirement, so I didn't put it in the assignment, but if you're interested in changing the color scheme so it fits your design or style better than the UCF logoing thing, by all means, please feel free to do that. Okay, so let's look at our test cases. So we change those to So when the page loads, initially, there we go, this is what it should look like. So you should have your scorecard with no values, the speculative scores should not be displaying, the roll dice should be enabled, and the 2 dice areas should be empty. So that's the first test case. And then there's a screen capture down here. The second test case, player clicks roll the dice button for the first roll. And so the web browser should update and display 5 dice randomly rolled, similar to figure 2. So I got 5 dice. Come over here, scroll down, there we go. So then the next test case is for the player selecting dice to keep. So when you select dice to keep, they should move from the dice area to the selected area. So I'm going to grab those 3 ones. And so that screen capture is down here. For screen capture 3, selecting the dice. So then the next test case is the second roll. And so any remaining dice should be rolled. And they rolled. And with the test case here, because now we're going to be on roll 3, so that leads us into test case 5. The player is going to click the dice to keep and then clicks roll the dice button for the third roll. So I'm going to keep that 1 and I'm going to roll that die. So what you should see happen, the web browser did display to select the selected dice got separated from the unselected dice. It did that. And then the roll the dice button is disabled. Yes, it is. And then the round number is increased by 1. Not yet. It's after you pick. Okay. So then down there. So I'm gonna pick the 4. There we go. So you're gonna see the roll, the turn number updated there. And then player clicks on all 5 dice and then clicks the speculative score column to select a category. So we demonstrated that. So I'm gonna grab my 6s, roll, yay, Yahtzee! So once I click on one of the categories, that's what we should see, right? And then that screen capture is down here. And then the last screen capture is the game over. So I already demonstrated that. Let's just do it real quick. Let's try for a full house. 3, 4, 3, 4. We already have the 1s. Let's try for a small straight. Oh, we got a large straight. Hell yeah. One of the crazy things that I don't know if you guys play this game at all. I play this game a lot. One of the things I've noticed about this game, there's a small straight, is that playing it electronically, I get better scores than if I play it in real life. It's like the randomization is much nicer than real dice rolling. This one, I need 5 6s, 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind chance. 5 6s. 5 6s. Oh, that's terrible. Oof. Again, to do the chance, you have to pick all of the dice. Here's my 6s. 6s. Ah, opposed. 5s. 5s. Opposed again. Man. Dice were a lot nicer yesterday when I was playing. 3 of a kind. Let's do this. 4s. There we go. 3 of a kind. Right on. And finally, do our 6s. There we go. Okay. So the last screen capture is the end of the game. So I'm going to pick my 18. Game is over, and that's the score you should see. Okay, so there's one more test case. You need to make sure you don't have any errors or anything in your console. That should be empty. All right. Questions, concerns? You'll know when you try it. I see some people typing badly. I feel like I feel like it's very explanatory. I've pretty much like given you the requirements almost line by line of the source code you have to write. It's just, I know that, you know, learning JavaScript sounds really easy until you actually get into it and you start working with it. And so I hope that I have explained the assignment requirements well enough. So let me do this since those two are different. So we have two of them that I had to change because that needed to be class instead of ID, and that was a roll dice button instead of roll button. Okay. Let me take the highlighting off of that. None. None. There we go. All right, so that was, Control Z. 13 and 17. Do this. Oh my goodness. Anyone find other typos that I didn't cover?
You did say brackets was going to give us like weird errors sometimes.
Sometimes it does.
Yeah.
Let's go look at. Yeah, so you see it's giving us an X and it's going, hey, no. So brackets kind of lies. So if you're getting weird errors like this, just ignore them. I mean, especially with the scoring.js, I gave you functional code. So there shouldn't be any errors. It's just sometimes brackets is really weird about JavaScript. So it's not like the best IDE for JavaScript, but it still works. You know, it's just not amazing sometimes. Sometimes you just get bad errors and it's not really true. So that's about all you're gonna see. Let me finish this. During review of the assignment class, there are two typos discovered. Please reference items 13 and 17. All right. Go. Thinking about it? There you go. Take your time, computer, take your time. Come over here. Let me get this uploaded. One more thing, just bear with me a second. So I have a silly question for you, since I'm never on the student end of web courses. Do you actually get a notification when I click this button? Do you receive a notification?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome, great. I never knew if it actually worked, because I can't see the other end of it, you know? There we go. All right, now send that email. know. Good deal. Okay. That is all squared away. Yeah, I don't want to say that. Oops. That was not what I wanted to do. Wrong tab. It's this tab I want to close. Come on, web courses. There you go. All right, so we just have 20 minutes left. Do you want to start PHP today, or do you want to do it on Wednesday? We could probably talk about like 2 PHP lectures. We're actually really far ahead compared to normal semesters. We're probably, well, no, we're about 1 week ahead. This is week 7. Usually I have 4 weeks left between PHP and React.